Progress.
All systems are go. Launch in 10 seconds. I had picked a reading, but it was too long. So here's this from Reverend Sapphire Rose. Good morning. Lovely to see you in your various disparate locations. Olympia, Florida, Quadra Island. She let go. She let go without a word or thought. She just let go. She let go of the fear. She let go of the judgments. She let go of the confluence of opinions swarming around her head. She let go of the committee of indecision within her. She let go of all the right for all the right. She let go of all the right reasons. Wholly and completely without hesitation or worry, she just let it go. She didn't ask anyone for advice. She didn't read a book on how to let go. She didn't search the scriptures. She just let go. She let go of all the memories that held her back. She let go of all the anxiety that kept her from moving forward. She let go of the planning and all the calculations about how to do it just right. She didn't promise to let go. She didn't journal about it. She didn't write the projected date in her day timer. She made no public announcement and put no ad in the newspaper. She didn't check the weather report or read her daily horoscope. She just let go. She didn't analyze whether she should let go. She didn't call her friends to discuss the matter. She didn't do a 5-step spiritual mind treatment. She didn't call the prayer line. She didn't utter one word. She just let go. No one was around when it happened. There was no applause or congratulations. No one thanked her or praised her. No one noticed a thing. Like a leaf falling from a tree, she just let go. There was no effort. There was no struggle. It wasn't good and it wasn't bad. It was just what it was. And it was just that. In the space of letting go, she let it all be. A small smile came over her face. A light breeze blew through her. And the sun and the moon shone forevermore. Let go. So, my friends, here we are. Friday, the 24th of June, 2022. Yes. I will spend this morning after we finish packing and doing some yard work, leaving for Brighton Bush around 1, 22 people coming to spend 5 days in silence. Be my first time back there since the fire. I think I'm prepared to be a bit shocked. But for now, here we have an infinite amount of time to be right here. We have this moment. So please let us find a way to sit comfortably upright. Let us find some way the mysterious way of bringing awareness into the body, into the breathing. There is the body that sits here. And there is awareness that knows it. We're so close to it, we do take it for granted. But what if we didn't? What if we actually could be aware of being aware? Not in some fancy way, just to notice, wow, there's a sense of presence here. And on top of that, it seems as though I, in quotes, I can direct it. So I'm going to direct it into the life in my hands. And into the sensations of in-breathing and out-breathing. As best I can. Each breath has this beginning. And the beginning gives way to rising and then falling and then vanishing. This is enough. Of course, there may well be, there probably is, activity in the mind. The mind loves to conjure up images and memories and plans, and there are the great energies of the five hindrances. Perhaps the mind is wanting something. It can be very subtle, profoundly subtle, or it can be very coarse. Or the mind can be wanting not. I want less of this. And it can be just restless, agitated, busy, solving the problem, finding a place to rest, finding the solution. Or it can fall into sloth and torpor, sleepy dullness. It can fall into doubt. Five great energies of awakening, because we turn these five hindrances into wakefulness. Or in a way, they turn themselves into wakefulness. Mindfulness illuminates them. we might conceive of what we're doing or being here as settling back into the present moment. It's not a race to run. We're not marathon runners or extreme sports enthusiasts. We're really just a being living a lifetime. Living today. And there's no telling what mood will be present or what thoughts will come. There's no predicting what will walk down the road to our front door today. We have our plans. But there's lots of surprises. So when things are a little calm, we can pause and sit down and rest, abide. Nice old word, abide in the present moment, in which the breath comes and goes. In a way, we create our world with our thoughts, not in some magical way where we manifest thoughts in the world, but our perception of things is so colored by the mood that's present, the beliefs that are present. And so we come to what the Buddha called bare attention. What actually exists right now? The body, being the slowest moving, the slowest changing part of our being, provides us with an anchor in reality. Landing in the feet and legs, in the hands and fingers. There are actual sensations in breathing, in out breathing. In the same way, there are actual thoughts, much more quickly changing. I want to take the time to read this page and a half from Pema Chodron. And it's in response to a text I just received from Jennifer a little ago. Something pretty big has happened. Roe v. Wade has been overturned. So what do we do with that? How does the heart respond to that? And I want to just throw in some thoughts from a very remarkable person. We start with ourselves. We make ourselves right or make ourselves wrong every day, every week, every month, every year of our lives. We feel that we have to be right so that we can feel good. We don't want to be wrong, because then we'll feel bad. But we could be more compassionate toward all these parts of ourselves. When we feel right, we can look at that. Feeling right can feel good. We can be completely sure of how right we are and have a lot of people agreeing with us about how right we are. But suppose someone does not agree with us, then what happens? Do we find ourselves getting angry and aggressive? If we look into the very moment of anger or aggression, we might see what wars are made of. This is what race riots are made of, feeling that we have to be right, being thrown off and righteously indignant when someone disagrees with us. On the other hand, when we find ourselves feeling wrong, convinced that we're wrong, getting solid about being wrong, we could also look at that. The whole right and wrong business closes us down and makes our world smaller. Wanting situations and relationships to be solid, permanent, and graspable obscures the pith of the matter, which is that things are fundamentally groundless. Instead of making others right and wrong, or bottling up right and wrong in ourselves, there's a middle way, a very powerful way. We could see it as sitting on the razor's edge, not falling off to the right or to the left. The middle way involves not hanging on to our version so tightly. It involves keeping our hearts and minds open long enough to entertain the idea that when we make things wrong, we do it out of a desire to obtain some kind of ground or security. Equally, when we make things right, we are still trying to obtain some kind of ground or security. Could our minds and our hearts be big enough just to hang out in the space where we're not entirely certain about who's right and who's wrong? Could we have no agenda when we walk into a room with another person, not know what to say, not make that person right or wrong? Could we see, hear, feel other people as they really are? It is powerful to practice this way because we'll find ourselves continually rushing around to try to feel secure again, to make ourselves or them either right or wrong. But communication can happen only in that open space. Whether it's ourselves, our lovers, bosses, children, local Scrooge, or the political situation, it's more daring and real not to shut anyone out of our hearts and not to make the other into an enemy. If we begin to live like this, we'll find that we actually can't make things completely right or completely wrong anymore. Because things are a lot more slippery and playful than that. Everything is ambiguous. Everything is always shifting and changing, and there are as many different takes on any given situation as there are people involved. Trying to find absolute rights and wrongs is a trick we play on ourselves to feel secure and comfortable. This leads to a bigger underlying issue for all of us. How are we ever going to change anything? How is there going to be less aggression in the universe rather than more? We can then bring it down to a more personal level. How do I learn to communicate with someone who is hurting me, or someone who is hurting a lot of people? How do I speak to someone so that some change actually occurs? How do I communicate so that the space opens up and both of us begin to touch in on some kind of basic intelligence that we all share? In a potentially violent encounter, how do I communicate so that neither of us becomes increasingly furious and aggressive? How do I communicate to the heart so that a stuck situation can ventilate? How do I communicate so that things that seem frozen, unworkable, and eternally aggressive begin to soften up and some kind of compassionate exchange begins to happen? Well, it starts with being willing to feel what we are going through. It starts with being willing to have a compassionate relationship with the parts of ourselves that we feel are not worthy of existing on the planet. If we are willing through meditation to be mindful, know only what feels comfortable, but also what pain feels like. If we even aspire to stay awake and open to what we're feeling, to recognize and acknowledge it as best we can in each moment, then something begins to change. Compassionate action. Begin there for others. Being able to act and speak in a way that communicates starts with seeing ourselves when we start to make ourselves right or make ourselves wrong. At that particular point, we could just contemplate the fact that there is a larger alternative to either of those, a more tender, shaky kind of place where we could live. This place, if we can touch it, will help us train ourselves throughout our lives to open further to whatever we feel, to open further rather than shut down more. We'll find that as we begin to commit ourselves to this practice, as we begin to have a sense of celebrating the aspects of ourselves that we found so impossible before, something will shift in us. Something will shift permanently in us. Our ancient habitual patterns will begin to soften, and we'll begin to see the faces and hearts and the words of people who are talking to us. If we begin to get in touch with whatever we feel with some kind of kindness, our protective shell will melt, and we'll find that more areas of our lives are workable. As we learn to have compassion for ourselves, the circle of compassion for others, what and whom we can work with and how becomes wider. Pema Chodron. Please reference where that comes from. I cannot reference that, but I will put it on my blog as soon as we finish today. It's Pema Chodron from some of her writings. So, I will be absent on Sunday and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week because I'm going on retreat. I think I'm having allergies now. Get through COVID and start runny nose. Is there anything we should announce, Jim? Is Jim still here? Think not. Okay.
I think it's a quiet weekend.
Already.
PIMC.
Oh, I see you. Thanks, Jim. Trina will be teaching on Sunday morning. Certainly
Trina will
worthy
be here
of
Sunday, yes.
going to hear what she has to say.
And today is my 55th anniversary with my wife, Jody.
Wow. Congratulations, Jim.
What a journey.
Who knew, huh?
Who knew?
Huh. You married at 5 years old, I know.
We graduated from college one week and got married the next week.
Wow.
And the pictures of those two baby faced people are really a riot today.
Yeah. 55 years. Amazing. So, friends, anything anyone would like to share? In case someone doesn't know, my blog is on my website, robertbeatty.com/blog. Or you can find it, just go to robertbeatty.com and look at the top row.
Robert,
I hear a voice. Hadley.
this is Had. I just wanted to share that this morning I feel really present to bright possibility, and that's like naive wonder. I don't want to put it down, but I'm recalling going to the Portland Japanese Garden with Ajahn Sona, a monk from I think it's Birkin Monastery up in British Columbia.
Uh-huh.
A wonderful man and a wonderful monk. And we were talking about doing a retreat with him. This was a few years ago, and he said, and we were in the Japanese garden, and it was just beautiful and perfect the way the Japanese garden can be. And he said, we always do retreats in church basements and where we can afford it, sort of in a paltry or not a very honored or dignified way necessarily. I mean, we can, of course, we can bring that anywhere we are. But he just said, why not? How about if we do a retreat here at the Japanese Garden? So we were looking at really honoring what is the the best we can do, what we want, and that really reflects to me now how the PIMC is really blossoming as a wonderful place with all the good work that's been done. Thank God you're taking that off your plate now. You've done so much there, but we have really progressed, and the center is looking so beautiful, and I'm really present with that.
Thanks, Had. I'm not going anywhere very precipitously. At least I don't think I am.
Robert,
I hear a
it's
voice.
B.
Oh, it's B. Hello,
It's B.
B.
Yeah. Um, I feel like I have to speak. You're sharing with us Jennifer's text. It was really kind of a gut punch to me this morning, even though it was not unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I really want to thank you for doing that and for bringing it to our space. I appreciated that.
Mm.
And I appreciated you reading Pema Chodron, who I love. And I found myself terribly uncomforted by it, which also surprises me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that's manifesting as a kind of doubt in me right now.
Uh-huh.
And what I found myself thinking was, it made me think about Ukraine, and if I were in Ukraine, or if we were in Ukraine, we would really be backs against the wall, and we wouldn't be thinking very much about how to find that razor's edge and that middle ground. We would just be probably fighting. Mm-hmm. And it made me wonder if we, this is the doubt, if it's a place of privilege that allows us to try to find a middle ground and try to not have deep preferences because we're not backs against the wall. Mm-hmm. And that there are people in this country who are, and people through the world that are. So that's my doubt this morning. That came up from this. And I'm curious what you or anyone else can say about that.
There's something that pops to mind for me. I will no doubt say something like this evening as we settle into the retreat at Brightonbush. I have no idea where it occurs in the Pali Canon, but I've heard it from Ruth and other teachers. So here we are with 5 days. Here we are with an hour to practice. Here we have an hour when there's enough food, when there's no war nearby, when the conditions are all aligned for deep practice and awakening. The Buddha said, practice when you're young and healthy. Practice when the conditions arise to allow you to practice, because they're not given. Practice when you're not on your deathbed. I mean, practice in advance, because the conditions are not given. But the conditions sometimes do arise, and then let us make good use of them. That if we were in Ukraine, we could be fleeing, or we could be carrying a rifle, or we could be doing all. We'd be back into primitive mammalian survival, and it's one of the things that I feel sad about the situation there. I don't want to go on too long about it. I like that guy Vladimir Zolinsky, and he's full of hate. And wouldn't I be if I were in his role? Isn't that the role? I mean, that, the Buddha abdicated his leadership of the nation in order to become the Buddha. The Siddhartha abdicated. And because his destiny was to be a king and to go to war. And he said, nope, I'm not going that way. So yes, I think it is a tremendous privilege. And the Buddhists would look at it as to have the opportunity to practice is a profound ripening of good karma, so make good use of it. Though I understand the doubts. And here's a day in which we can practice. If we fill the day with, I shouldn't have this day because there are other people who don't have this day, then I spend my day lost in anguish. So it's quite a dilemma. And there is anguish. I mean, look, this is a big thing that's just happened in our Sikh Supreme Court.
I think it's not so much for me, should I then spend the day in anguish? I'm having trouble finding this, but I'm going to try. But it's more, if we are truly trying to see ourselves as connected to everyone, then is my back not against the wall? The fact that I'm not a poor 22-year-old woman in Texas who's facing life-changing circumstances because of this, does that mean that I'm not in it? That I'm not in it? That this is my time to be able to meditate, or am I just not letting myself be in it? Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense, and I think that will be revealed for you. What's true for you? And I guess my recommendation, coming from the perspective that I do, is maybe it would be great to take that to a local monastery and spend the day really going deeply into it. Mm. Or maybe there's letters to write, or maybe there's a way that you're called to activism. Or both. I mean, one thing that this particular structure here, sitting here, needs to guard against is hopelessness.
That's true.
And Joanna Macy just came to mind. This might be a moment for certainly some of us. It would be wonderful if we could band together and do this. For some of us to do something together to honor the grief, to honor the tremendous sadness and rage that arises in a moment of national betrayal like this. And not with the purpose of staying stuck in that, but of really feeling deeply our humanness and our polarities fully, and then finding a way to find balance in the middle of them and to stand up again. I know one of the things I've done a couple of times with Joanna over the years, long ago now, was we really opened, people shared their darkest sense of the world. And we wound up collapsing to the floor, lying on the floor. And then she put on some really beautiful music and invited us that when you're ready to commit yourself to being conscious and loving and doing what you can to bring peace into the world, and take as long as you need. When you're ready to do that, if you're ready to do that, then stand up. And so it came in the context of there having been crying and screaming and anger and really deep cathartic anguish, which is part of us. And then, well, is there a way I can stand up in the middle of this and do what I can to heal myself and others? You did say shock, like a gut punch. And this is a gut punch. It's profound. And I guess the way that I'm speaking makes my politics pretty clear. And there could easily be people on this broadcast whose view is the opposite one. that this is a really fine thing, that those unborn children will now have a chance to be born. And that's depending upon the beliefs one holds.
That's a good point, Robert, and I'm glad you brought that up.
My wife, my first wife, Kathleen, and I, the first time we ever tried to get pregnant, we did. First time. And then at 12 weeks, she got German measles, rubella. Her mother had a rubella baby, Malcolm, who died at 12 weeks. And it's a catastrophic thing to have that happen. And very complicated story, but we ultimately chose to end that baby's life at 5 months. And we did what's called a saline abortion, where the baby was injected with saline, and then she gave birth to a visibly perfect little boy who would have had heart, lung, brain, all kinds of problems, and would have died young. But we made that choice, and it was a big choice. And I think that for us, it was the right choice. And it did make it clear to me that we were ending a life. And Jennifer's a veterinarian. She has ended the life of thousands, probably thousands, of animals. She won't do what are called convenience euthanasia. I'm done with this dog. But she's relieved the suffering of a lot of animals. And the Buddhist teachings would frown on that heavily. They just don't do this end of life, euthanasia stuff. So I can understand how people come down on different sides of the issue. And the problem for me is that imposing my views on somebody else, is some other young woman in Texas, is that seems pretty damn intrusive to me. But I can understand people landing on both sides. Awkward, isn't it? Tense, painful. Over the years at PIMC, this role that I'm in there's lots of praise and appreciation and love and so on, but there's also lots of criticism. And there were those who would say about my bringing this up this morning, don't bring the bombs into the bomb shelter. I don't want to hear about this here. And this is bringing the messiness of life right into the middle of our practice. Just a time check. I need to leave in about 5 minutes. it feels difficult to not stay together right now. Let us send each other on the way with a blessing. May all beings without exception, receive all blessings. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. See you, my friends. Have a fine day of awakening in the midst of it all.
Greet Brighton Bush for us.
Yes.
I shall. I'll bring you back a report. I'll take a picture or three, no doubt. Okay, and I will go in about 20 minutes to my website and put that that blog post in. I'm going to spend a few minutes with Jen before she leaves. Happy trails, friends.